There's a lot to talk about. A lot changed after about 4 p.m. Saturday when it came to the college football playoff and some of maybe your favorite teams, maybe one of America's teams, the Tennessee Volunteers, got shellacked down in Athens. A lot happened, and Nicole Auerbach is joining us as usual to talk about everything college football. Nicole, what surprised you the most? Which big loss, the way it happened, whatever it is, surprised you the most from Saturday?
That's a tough question. So I think that Clemson probably surprised me the least, even though Notre Dame has a couple really, really bad losses on their resume. We've talked about this on the show. It just didn't feel like Clemson was in the same category as the other teams we're talking about for the playoff. I was pretty heated last week when Michigan was ranked behind them, just because I feel like if you played those two teams played each other, we would all pick Michigan to win the game. So I think that was kind of a long time coming. Alabama has had issues as well and weaknesses that Bryce Young has kind of offset, and like his miracle runs and extending of plays and some of these magical moments have really allowed them to win some games in the last couple years, especially on the road that they probably shouldn't have won. So maybe not that one either. So I guess it's Tennessee, because I did
Yeah.
think that, I think we all come out of that game understanding that Georgia is the new standard bearer for the sport of college football. But I really did think that Tennessee would play better or really fully come back at some point. You really thought that offense would figure something out against the defense. But it didn't. It didn't. Hendon Hooker was just beat up. I mean, they were just coming and coming and coming at him. And they really couldn't get anything going. So I think like the score ended up being fairly misleading, because that was as much of a blowout as you could possibly have for like a 27-13 game.
Yeah, it's really sobering. It felt like this was Tennessee's year. It felt like they were like a team of destiny or something like that, and it's just
Yeah.
a really sobering end to a fun run for them. If you're Georgia, or if you're playing Georgia, is there anything you can take now? If you're getting ready to play Georgia, if you're looking at it down the line, where you say, okay, the Missouri game, or somewhere along the way they showed some weakness that we can exploit. I feel like people thought they were a lot more beatable
Yeah.
before this morning, and I just feel like now it's like, oh, more of the same. Like they really are the best team in the country, probably.
That's probably where I am too. It just feels like we thought the national championship picture was more open than it is. And I think until proven otherwise, it's just like Georgia and there's a gap. And then we look at the other contenders, especially because like Ohio State didn't look very good. It hasn't really looked good in about 3 games from a complete team, complete offense standpoint. So I think that that's probably fair. I mean, that's probably where I am. I think there was some weirdness in the Missouri game, Kent State, like some of these teams that have played Georgia, and we've kind of raised our eyebrows, but it just feels like any game where they're going to be up for someone, and like a playoff game, SEC championship type game, there's really not much you're going to be able to do. You're not going to be able to catch them sleeping in any area, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I still think, there's definitely some ways where like we saw some stuff out of the vertical passing game that we hadn't really seen, because they were doing a lot of cool stuff with their tight ends. So, they seem to be growing as well. So I think even if you look at some weaknesses maybe from earlier in the season, it may not carry over. But I mean, clearly you're going to need a team that's really, really talented and really deep in a lot of spots, because I think that's where you really see this, especially knowing how much they left to the NFL, just how deep they are. I mean, how many blue chip players they have all over.
Yeah, and that was a conversation I feel like with Bama for a long time, and now that's Georgia, and so
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know if it's like a passing of the torch, but it is it's funky, like because I couldn't imagine, as you alluded to, having a quarterback that helps you play above your potential as much as Bryce does down in Tuscaloosa. I mean, he's gotten him out of trouble at different points, and this is still like the final product. Like, there's no
Yeah.
long-term worry about Bama, like being a year-in, year-out college football playoff program. Like, this is a hiccup for them, right? I mean, they're out, right? But this is a hiccup.
I think so. We've seen Nick Saban evolve. We've seen him modernize. We've seen him adapt multiple times throughout the course of his
Yeah.
tenure. And like when the offense was kind of getting beat or stalling out or needed to change, he brought in Lane Kiffin and he
Yeah.
modernized his offense. And that's why Bryce Young worked so well in it. So I think you've got to assume that. But, again, he's had a lot of different staffing changes over the course of this dynasty. Maybe he looks there and fixes some things. But they were also, not as talented at like wideout than we've seen in recent years. Like there's certain spots that I think they could probably beef up. But yeah, I'm not going to worry about Alabama. It's definitely not as much of like an existential crisis as I feel like the big picture is with Clemson, the other team that we always see in the playoff that also lost on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, lost 2 coordinators and didn't look great in a few spots this year. They look human. I mean, and they look human when they don't have some like transcendent quarterback. So,
Yes.
like more of an existential crisis, as you would put it, I would think, at Clemson. So, what does it look like now, like maybe 1 through 6 for you?
Okay, so, well, here, let me put it back on you. Like, how far would you drop Tennessee for what we saw?
Oh, man, I don't know, 6, 7?
I don't think they're gonna fall that far, which I think is gonna.
I
I think that's gonna piss people off.
yeah.
But like, okay, so
I'm mad at Tennessee, man. I just wanted Georgia to lose. I wanted some new blood in this thing. And the way you put it, like, and if you ask a Georgia fan, like, they should have damn near got shut out. I mean, it wasn't like they put any sustained drives together or anything. I saw a play where it was like 3rd and 38, or if it was like 4th and 28 late in that game, and they got bailed out on a face mask. And I'm like, it's just raining. It's 4th and a mile. They look desperate. It's just not even close. So
yeah, I know. I wanted it to be a better game because you wanted to think that this is a team that was closing a gap. Part of the problem now, and this is where like Tennessee's going to fall, but not that much because so you lost Alabama, you lost Clemson,
yeah,
like they're going
that's
to
right.
drop in the rankings. Ohio State hasn't looked, like I said, I don't think they've looked good in a few weeks. The run game is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I would flip Michigan. I would go Georgia, Michigan 2, probably Ohio State 3, and then I think I would put Tennessee 4. You could also make the case, maybe the committee will, that like maybe they'll course correct on TCU because they're still undefeated, but they
I
fell
would go
behind.
TCU. I just feel like I feel like the resume of like just winning like has to mean something and not
Right,
losing
it should.
and beating a lot of, as we've put it, like pretty good teams, as opposed to some of these teams have only have 1 or 2 quality wins. But Georgia, they didn't need a bunch of high quality wins. Like the 2 tests they've had, they've blown it out of the water.
I know. Well, so that's where like Oregon will. Oh, it was actually a really good Saturday for Oregon because you saw another really good team just get blitzed by Georgia, and Oregon has scored 40 or more points in every game since. Oregon's looked really good. Like the committee said that they look like a different team. They've gotten better. So I think they'll benefit from this as well. I might consider. I haven't been locked into making my CFP picks yet, but I might consider putting Tennessee and Georgia or Tennessee and Oregon still ahead of TCU. Just again based on like, wouldn't that Georgia loss happen to everyone? And Oregon goes and plays that. I know, but if TCU beats Texas next week, I'll put them up there.
Yeah.
It's fine. But I think like what we know of the committee from 1 week was that they were holding it against TCU, that they needed to come back in games. And what did they do against Texas Tech? Like they were trailing, and they had to come back in the game.
Yep.
And they're really good at pulling away. They've been winning these games by double digits the last few weeks. But the committee doesn't care. So if I'm now thinking, okay, let me make a 4 that I think the committee will do, I think they're going to put Tennessee at 4.
They're going to put Tennessee at 4. Okay.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible, if not likely.
And what way forward do they have?
For Tennessee?
Yeah.
So they're going to need a little more help with some of this other stuff. So the big picture positive news is that it looks like Alabama and Clemson are probably out of the playoff. And
Hooray.
I tweeted about this, and I couched it because you never know. Clemson only has 1 loss. But it got like 11,000 likes, and I realized that everyone else has Alabama and Clemson fatigue. I felt that for a number of years.
We all
Part
do.
of the reason that people wanted to expand the playoff early, right? But just like that's a massive number in reaction to having them both lose on the same night. So I think you want Clemson to lose again, probably, just to pull themselves totally out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
You want the Big 12 to cannibalize itself. You want TCU to lose probably this weekend. but you want like a 2-loss champ out of there. Probably better off if Oregon comes out of the Pac-12 as the Pac-12 champ, because you've lost to the same team, and you could say your loss was better. But you need like all of those multiple things. Maybe you want Michigan or Ohio State to lose en route to playing each other.
Yeah.
Or that game to be really lopsided when they meet, because you kind of just need to have all of these other contenders that like might play in a conference championship, might have all these other opportunities to boost their resumes. You need that to not work out,
right?
Because you just kind of need to be lurking there, and you're not going to be in the SEC championship game. So you kind of just need help, and you need Georgia to just look amazing, because then you can say, well, that's our only loss. Other than that, we're very good against everybody else.
So what's more likely, 1-loss SEC or ACC, or a 2-loss SEC team?
It feels like a 2-loss SEC team. I mean, we saw the rankings, right? Like we saw that the committee put LSU in the top 10, and that was 5 spots higher than the AP. So I think they always kind of defer to that league. Like there's always a lot of respect for the teams at the top there. It just does not feel that way for the ACC. Clemson was a surprise, but that's not going to carry over.
If I were, and I'm just talking about me, if I made these rankings up, the way my brain works, I would have TCU at 4. I don't know that they're a better team than Tennessee, but that's not what this has always been about.
Yes.
So I would have TCU, I would have Michigan, Ohio State, and I would have Georgia. And then I was a little harsh on Tennessee. I'd probably have Tennessee 5.
That's very reasonable. They could do that because they could say the same thing they did about Clemson and say TCU's got X amount of top 20 wins. They're undefeated. We really like their offense, and the defense makes enough stops.
Yep.
They could say that. They could come out and say that, and you could justify that. I would be totally fine with that. I like TCU.
No question.
I would give them another week. They beat Texas. I'll put them in.
I'm pulling for TCU. I'm doing whatever the hell they do.
Wait, are they America's team this week now?
They might be in America's team, because we're going to have room. The Phillies lost, and TCU as well, sliding in with Tennessee's loss. So
wait, I got one for like a 24-hour window. I've got an American team. We're in the window right now.
Hit me.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean they
not
are
America's team.
They really deserve at least a hard look by the America's Team Committee, because they got rid of an evil. Same thing with LSU. Honestly, I might make America's teams LSU and freaking and these guys, because honestly, it's all about getting rid of the fatigue. And you touched on it. And now Georgia's so damn good, I'm already fatigued with Georgia. That's how good. It took me years to be tired of Bama. Like Georgia might be even better.
It's been like one year. Yeah,
1 year,
and you're like, I'm out. I'm out.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Does any of it really matter? Can any of these teams beat Georgia? Give me like what would the line be if the second best team in the country, in your opinion, played Georgia on at a neutral site like next week?
What was the line in the Tennessee game? What did it end at?
It was like 7.5, or did it climb up to 9.5?
Oh, maybe I was looking at like a live line. Man,
no, I mean
10?
You might be better
Is
than
it
me.
10?
So you think it'd probably
10?
be a double-digit line, like let's say Michigan and Georgia.
Okay,
played.
let's say it's Michigan. I mean, we saw those two teams play in the playoff last year. Yeah, right? Like you would still think that there's that type of a gap.
I don't know, man.
Until Michigan proves otherwise.
We're right back where we started, Nicole.
I know.
We're right back where we started.
You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Okay. Well, we need there's more work that needs to be done here. We need some more teams to lose. Nicole, appreciate the time, and we'll catch you next week and see what other type of crazy shit happens.
Okay. I will see you at the meeting of the America's Team Committee this week.
Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.